Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First question, why are we here? And I think we need to reflect a little bit on history. After the 9/11 terrorist attack, the Bush administration secretly began spying on American citizens in the United States without judicial approval required by the Constitution and without the authorization from Congress. Years later, this committee heard dramatic testimony from former Deputy Attorney General Jim Comey about the efforts of White House Chief of Staff Andrew Card and White House counsel Alberto Gonzales to pressure Attorney General John Ashcroft into reauthorizing the surveillance while he was hospitalized. After the New York Times revealed the existence of warrantless surveillance programs, the Bush administration demanded that Congress pass legislation authorizing the program. This led to the FISA Amendments Act in 2008. I opposed it, as well as its reauthorization in 2012. I still have serious concerns that it doesn't include adequate checks and balances to protect the constitutional rights of innocent Americans. Now, we all support giving the intelligence community the tools they need to keep America safe, but we also live in a democracy. All of us have sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution, which limits the power of government, as Senator Lee has said. So, Mr. Morris said, in defining 702, in the simplest terms, it is only used to target foreign persons living outside the United States. If that were all, we wouldn't be talking about it. I think most of us would agree. Keep America safe. If someone outside the United States plans to do us harm, we want to know about it and stop them, period. And then we want to stop them further, perhaps by arrest or even more. But we also know that caught up in the information collected of those so-called foreign sources is information about Americans. Did you hear the exchange with Senator Lindsey Graham? Did you note the emotion in his voice as he thought about the possibility that his privacy was being invaded by his government, that someone might use that information through 702 against him as a United States Senator? You just witnessed something which is rare in the United States Senate. This chairman rightly said, let's extend the time of the senator to keep asking, because we're all concerned about that, because it's our privacy that Senator Graham has raised. But what about the privacy of the Americans who are not in this room? Well, now we run into another problem. Senator Franken asked you the most basic information. How many Americans have been swept up into this 702? You can't tell us. How are we supposed to believe that transparency is really the guiding principle and that we have such great data collection if you can't even identify for us how many Americans have been innocently swept up into this effort and can't answer Senator Graham's most basic question? So, Mr. Brooker, how are we supposed to have confidence that you're being careful not to involve more people than necessary to keep America safe, not to avoid the constitutional requirement of a warrant if you want to know something about Durbin or Graham or Franken or someone else?
It's a hard question, Senator. I think, like you, everyone at this table is concerned about our privacy and the privacy of our families, my folks in Arizona, my in-laws in Alabama, something we think about day in and day out and take very seriously. I think that's why the oversight of this committee, the oversight done by the FISA court and the Department of Justice is so critical to this process. You know, I think while we are unable to provide an absolute metrics on the number of U.S. persons incidentally acquired, we report a lot of information to this committee in classified form and a lot of information publicly relating to the number of U.S. persons unmasked.
Senator Graham couldn't get the basic information about it himself. I've been with him on trips overseas, and all of us, you know, we are in conversation with foreign leaders on a regular basis. The notion that our government has captured that conversation is something we ought to know about. If you try to do it in the United States, you'd need a warrant. If you did it when we were overseas, apparently not. And he's asked a basic question which for months has gone unanswered in this process. So I guess it comes down to the very basics here. We have seen over time, since the creation of these FISA Act amendments, a broadening of the power of the United States, the lifting of the requirement for warrants from the FISA courts. We've given you more and more and more authority. All we're asking is, how carefully are you using it? How closely are you following the Constitution as you use it? What efforts are you making to protect the innocent Americans who've done nothing wrong and just happen to be caught up in a communication or whose name is mentioned in a communication, and you tell us, hard question, we'll get back to you later. It is a hard question, but it's really fundamental. And I think it really raises questions about what we need to do if we truly want to uphold and defend this Constitution and still keep us safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.